Hello everyone. Thank you very much for attending this webinar organized by Nord France Invest, the investment promotion agency for Hauts-de-France, Unsworth, and RM Boulanger. I am Artus GALIAY, the Hauts-de-France representative to the United Kingdom, and today we're going to take you through a number of problems that you British companies have been confronted with since Brexit happened. So it's been almost 6 months now since Brexit happened. And although there has been a trade and cooperation agreement which allowed continuing to trade without tariffs or quotas, unfortunately, as you're all aware, there are a number of non-tariff barriers which have an important impact. So a number of you are asking yourselves important questions such as, how can I continue trading, exporting to the EU? How can I restructure my UKEU supply chain? To quote only a number of the challenges that you are confronted with, obviously some companies, for example, importing goods from Asia into the UK and then into Europe are confronted with the fact that these goods are hit twice by VAT and by tariffs. Other important issues are related to products of plant or animal origins, which are exported from the UK to the EU, as these need to undergo sanitary and phytosanitary controls, which obviously can lead to a number of issues. So in order to take you through some of these challenges, and obviously there are many more challenges to which you're confronted, and we can deal with your specific queries in the Q&A session. We have a number of experts today. So we have Charles HOGG, who is Commercial Director at Unsworth, the freight and customs brokerage company. And we have Michael Boulanger, who is the CEO of RM Boulanger, the French tax representation company, and myself. So without further ado, now on to you, Charles, if we can put up the slides.
So thank you, and good morning and welcome to today. Really, we're sort of 6 months on from the departure from the EU for the UK-sided businesses, and we wanted to touch on some of the lessons we've learnt and what other companies within the UK and the EU are benefiting from, in particular from a customs and tax point of view. So a lot of people come to Unsworth saying our customers in the EU won't put up with this Brexit faff for any longer, and how can we create a more frictionless process for our customers to buy from us. So at Unsworth, we're dedicated towards this cause, and we have a team of 120 people dealing with roughly 600 declarations a day, supporting this frictionless trade effort into the EU. And we've been recognised as the product of animal origin experts. Next slide, please. Why our customers like us is around how we are able to give them not just a good frictionless service, but also remove the hassle for their customers to work with us in terms of how they are buying from us. And that is something that has been very popular. A lot of it is all around good preparation, good liaison with your customs broker, and also in terms of how you're going to account and deal with the tax piece upon arrival into the EU, which my colleague Michael will introduce and touch on for you now.
Thank you very much, Charles and Artus. Good morning, everyone. Very pleased to be here today with you. Just a few words about our company, RM Boulanger. We are a fiscal representation company based in the north of France, and we've been dealing with Brexit for a couple of months now, and I will try to give you some solutions about how to have your goods imported with at least some frictionless way from the UK to the EU. Can we? All right. So we are. All right. So what do? We provide fiscal representation services in all the 27 countries of the European Union. We provide VAT and customs audits. We also deal with VAT refund claims, interested filing, and we also deal with the representation of posted workers in France. In case you would have some workers that would be posted to France, you need to have an official representative in this country. We have identified five bottlenecks, at least five bottlenecks that are arising from Brexit. Most of these bottlenecks are more customs and transport related. I could talk about the complexity of the customs processes, the veterinary and the sanitary inspections and certification, the high pressure on the supply chains, but also about the administrative burden. Our experience is that many companies are not enough aware about their fiscal liabilities, and I will refer to VAT, which is definitely an issue that needs to be managed very carefully. So the reality from a fiscal point of view is that the B2B transactions are not seen anymore as intra-community movements as they were before Brexit. Customs duties need to be paid because we are talking about export and imports of goods. These products attract import VAT that need to be dealt with, and I will give you some information about this a little bit later on. And the notion of who is the shipper, who will be the importer of records is very important, and this will be a very key point, and I will give you some information about this. So most of your clients probably require to be delivered on a DDP basis, so that they have pretty much nothing to do from a customs and a VAT perspective.
If you could go to the next slide, please.
So this reality is really difficult to manage, and we have some recommendation to make. One of these recommendations is to make your DDP deliveries organized to your French or European clients. The first recommendation would be to use a unique point of entry, which is France. France has a lot of things to offer to your company based in the UK, because Calais is in France, the closest country from the UK. It brings a lot of transport efficiency, and there is no need to deal with each customs authority in the countries of destination. So our recommendation is to have your goods imported and customs cleared in France as a unique country of import. And I will tell you a little bit more about the attractiveness of France from a VAT perspective. The second recommendation is to have your company the importer of records. And that's what is DDP, is that your company is the importer of records, so that your clients are not involved at all in the customs process, and they're very happy not to be involved with their own customs administration at destination. It also allows your clients to buy from you as if your company was still based in the EU just before Brexit. You also remain a UK business, so there is absolutely no corporate tax issues, provided that you would only have a trading of goods in the EU, and obviously you would maintain your business position as competitive as possible on the EU market. So our solution it refers to the DDP deliveries, and because in our opinion, France has become a very attractive country because the VAT deferment is absolutely available and very easy to obtain. There is a mutual tax reciprocity between France and the UK, so that your company, when they will be selling to EU clients from France, there will be no requirement to set up a bank guarantee with the French tax government, and it reduces the VAT compliance costs. So your company would be the importer of records, they would be selling on a DDP basis, and that's exactly what your clients want. So the first thing to do in order to be able to sell on a DDP basis is to obtain an EU ERI number. You already have a UK ERI number, but you will need to have an EU ERI number. That's not a big deal. It takes maximum 24 hours. You will also need to appoint a customs broker, a good customs broker, and we would recommend Unsworth to be your customs broker. You a third recommendation, and that's also how you could make the DDP deliveries possible, is to appoint RMBs as your tax agent. And I will go through two different cases so that you will understand more how the process will be. So the first case is for companies that sells to EU businesses only and not to France. That's very important to know. In case your company is in this situation, then the limited tax representation, also called the regime 4200, is available for your company, and that could be a very interesting company because very interesting solution. Sorry, because this regime, these arrangements can be used immediately. There is no prior VAT registration. There is no VAT to be paid upfront either. Import VAT is reverse charged, and there is no VAT on your sales either. And your clients are not involved in the customs process. So that's how the regime 4200 is about. And the process is that your goods would be cleared in France in your name, so you would be the importer of records. Goods would be immediately transported to your EU clients, and you would be using RMB's, our company's VAT number. We have a formal accreditation from the tax authorities that allows our company to share our VAT number with our clients. And we would take care of reporting all your transactions from a VAT and an interested perspective to the French tax authorities. In case your company is selling to both EU clients and French businesses, then you would have two other options. The first option would be to use our limited tax representation solution and pay the import VAT upfront for the goods that are sold to your French clients. That's a very easy solution. However, you will need to pre-finance a little bit your import VAT for your French sales. You could also register for VAT in France and have your own VAT number, and that would allow your company to apply for a full import VAT deferment wherever your goods will be shipped to France or to some other EU countries. The benefit is that there will be no import VAT to pay, there will be no VAT on your sales, and your company will have its own VAT number, and it would bring some more tax stability with the French tax authorities. So the process would be customs cleared in France, in your name, goods would be sold to French and EU customers, you would appoint RMB as your tax agent, and you would mention your own VAT number on your sales invoices, and RMB would take care of reporting these transactions through your French VAT declarations.
So Artus touched on the whole rules of origin piece, and in particular, he was really touching on the trade agreement that was negotiated right up until the last minute. Was it really as good as the sort of press or the government made it out to be? And I think there are some fundamental holes still within it that must be understood, and it does sometimes require you to restructure or reconsider your supply chain, in particular how goods could be coming from China into the UK and then for onward sale into Europe. Don't be too afraid. What I would say is the UK government does have some funding available to cover the costs of some of this consulting work, and also your customs broker or Unsworth, along with R&B, are perfectly equipped to guide you in terms of the whole rules of origin piece. What I would say is the regime 42 to sell DDP to remove the Brexit faff from your customers is exceptionally popular and very easy. Michael might say it in very much detail, but almost within sort of 72 hours, we can get you selling again, and we'll touch on that in one of our case studies shortly. So products of animal origin have been exceptionally contentious, and those involved in the Northern Irish debate at present would know the whole sort of chilled meat scandal and sausages and everything else that falls within the sort of rules of it. But if we focus around the Calais border, in fact, it's magnetising products of animal origin towards the border because it's such a streamlined, simple and efficient process. In fact, we're seeing sort of 30% of flows that used to go through the Netherlands now really focus on the Calais-Dunkirk border due to the simplicity and the pragmatism of those involved. So from my side, if you are involved in products of animal origin, have a conversation with us here at the team, because there's a lot of streamlining and cost reduction processes that can be achieved when you really understand the process. So I'm going to touch on one of our customers called Dawkins International. They are a well-known pork trader. In fact, they sell probably 400 tons of pork into the EU markets per week. And they approached just about 3 weeks into Brexit going, our well-laid plans just aren't working. We're seeing end-to-end transit times of 7 or 10 days. And unfortunately, on a short shelf life product, it really didn't leave enough shelf life for the ultimate manufacturer of the sausages in Germany. So they were really concerned that their overall business, which is, very substantial, it was really grinding to a halt. They came to us with this problem, and really we then discovered what they really needed. And so they were using transit documents. They were getting confused between how the BCP process worked and how the overall customs process worked. And we really simplified it to enable them that when they present their goods at Calais, they're clearing both customs and veterinary control at once, so that when the truck rolls out of the Calais border, those goods are in essence in free circulation, able to go within reason to any of the EU member states without any further additional customs controls. And really what this has done is shrunk a end-to-end transit time down from 7 days to 2 days, simply by just using what we would call the RMB Unsworth sort of VAT logic. For them, it's ultimately saved costs, saved their business model, but also has really enabled them to take over some of the market share from their competition who weren't able to react to it quite so quickly. What I would say is that there are still many of your customers buying from you in the EU that would prefer to buy DDP, in essence, as if it was buying pre the departure from the EU, thus meaning they're more attracted to buy from yourselves and not from an EU competitor down the road, even if it could be at a slightly higher price. And from Unsworth's and RMB's standpoint, that is our biggest concern, that ultimately your customers choose to buy elsewhere and thus aren't really wanting to buy from you. And what we aim to do, and really our mission here today, is to reinforce the message about the pragmatism of how efficient the North France corridor is, and also around how just streamlined and digitalised the process can be. In terms of Unsworth, we're humans. We're a people-first technology business, but everything you want is online within our portals, controllable 24/7. What that means is if you want to know where a shipment is, or particular status, or a particular issue, you can see it all in one platform. It really is the future for doing Brexit well and doing Brexit right, and it's really something that our customers have found to be very useful in terms of accessing the EU markets and removing the need for transit documents. Touching on the North of France corridor, I'm an exceptionally proud person around promoting the Dover-Calais short straits because it just works. The smart border solution is smart and digitised and enables the free flow of hundreds of trucks per day. So Artus is going to walk us through some of the benefits of North of France.
Thank you very much, Charles, and thank you very much, Michael, for these very interesting and concrete and actionable solutions. I think that's really the main benefit that I see for companies that have been struggling with some of these obstacles. So now that you've heard these concrete solutions, the question is for you, well, what reasons would you have to do business with Hauts-de-France? So I think there are three main arguments here. I mean, it's really about proximity, efficiency, and resilience. The argument about proximity speaks really for itself, as you can see it on this map. If you take a 300-kilometer radius around Lille, the regional capital, you have more than 78 million people with annual purchasing power of 1.5 trillion euros. And that's right at Britain's doorstep, again, readily available to British companies with really strong proximity to most European markets. In terms of efficiency, we have highly dense and multimodal transport facilities and infrastructures, to which I will touch upon quickly. And we have adapted to Brexit, I mean, as Michael highlighted, from a fiscal angle or Charles from a customs angle. The Franco-British border has been working really hard, and French customs have been working really hard for the past few years in creating the smart border system, adapting our rules, which makes France a really attractive country from a UK-EU trade perspective. And then in terms of resilience, we have a really strong diversity of sectors in the region, but also strong diversity of skills and human capital, which means that regardless of what you ask people to do in this region, whether it's just about clearing customs or dealing with tax issues, or even if you want to set up a company in Hauts-de-France and actual production operations, they will have the right skills to do so. Now, focusing on the logistics part of things and the logistics ecosystem in Hauts-de-France. So these names are all of the big names that do business currently in Hauts-de-France. I'm sure you will recognize some of them, and you probably do business with a number of them. And in terms of the four transport modes that are mainly used in the region, so obviously there are roads, and we have the densest network of roads in France. On railways, similarly, we have more than 10% of the actual French railway network, and we have a booming rail freight sector, which is obviously crucial from an environmental angle, but also from an efficiency angle. You may have heard of Cargo Beamer, the German company who set up near Calais. They have a really high-tech solution to transfer containers from port ecosystems directly onto trains, which allows then dispatching them wherever you want. We also have a really dense network of waterways, more than 1,000 kilometers, with a huge project called the Canal Seine-Nord Europe, which you may have heard of. It's basically about digging a canal 107 kilometers long between the Seine Valley near Paris and the Escaut River near Belgium. And that would really massively improve the efficiency and interconnectivity of the logistics ecosystem in Hauts-de-France, with direct access to all the waterways in Northern Europe. And given that one boat on a waterway can carry the equivalent of up to 200 trucks, you can see how efficient it can get and how more respectful of the environment as well. And obviously we have a really strong ports ecosystem with the port of Calais, which is specialized in roll-on, roll-off transport, and its really specific Dover connection. We have the port of Dunkirk, which is specialized in containers and with really global interconnections and the latest generation of transport, container ships, which are not just huge, but also powered with liquefied natural gas, so again, respecting the environment. And we have the port of Boulogne-sur-Mer, which is the main fish marketplace and fish transformation industry in Europe. And obviously, finally, we have the Eurotunnel getting you across the channel in barely 35 minutes. So really dense transport and logistics ecosystem, which can support you with a number of solutions, regardless of how you want to restructure your UK-EU supply chain. I mentioned the diversity of sectors in the region. These are just some of the sectors where Hauts-de-France is leading in France. So obviously there's the automotive sector with car plants from Renault, Peugeot, but also from Toyota, and huge gigafactory projects, in particular near Douvrin, with the aim to build up to 1 million batteries a year to make sure that the region and the whole industry in the region is able to ride this transition to electric vehicles. We're also a leader in the rail industry with companies such as Bombardier. We manufacture, for example, the trains for the regional trains for the Paris region. We're also leading in the agri-food sector, so that's not just about producing crops, but also the whole transformation part, and with companies like Roquette, whose products are sold really across the world. I've touched upon logistics, and obviously retail and e-commerce is an important angle in there. And here we have the largest Amazon warehouse in Europe, which is in the region here near Amiens. And we have really important logistics parks. I mean, you may have heard of it. It's called E-Valley, and it will become the largest logistics park in Europe. It's built on a former French air base near Cambrai, and currently there are 2 very large warehouses that have already been built. Another is being built, and the overall it will be more than 700,000 square meter worth of space with quadrimodal connections, so rail and road access, obviously, waterways access with the Canal Seine-Nord, who will go through that place, but also drone deliveries, which are being experienced there. So in terms of logistics solutions, the region is really well placed to serve your needs. Now, you may have seen the recent ranking produced by Business France and EY, which says that France has become first for the 2nd year in a row in attracting foreign direct investments. So that's really important news, and it speaks really to the importance of the French economy in recent trends. And in that ranking, you can also see that the Hauts-de-France region has become first again for industrial FDIs for the 2nd year in a row. So that really shows the importance that we attach to industry overall. And here, the Hauts-de-France region is here to support British companies, whatever their own decisions, to continue exporting to EU customers and expanding into the EU economy. So we're already a really internationally connected region. 1 in every 10 employees in the region actually works for a foreign-owned company. So that really shows how important these international connections are and how keen we are to continue developing them. And that angle is even more pronounced for the industry, as 27% of jobs in the industry are related to foreign-owned companies. And as you can see here, 85% of foreign-owned companies in the Hauts-de-France region recommend the region to peers. So this is simply the ranking of countries who invested in the region by the number of jobs that have been created here in the region. So as you can see, the United Kingdom comes forth with more than 11,000 jobs created by British-owned companies. So it's coming after the US, Germany, and Belgium. And so as you can see, we have really strong margin for progression here. So we're really keen to develop that and interact with you to achieve this and to help you really find solutions. And these are just some of the big British names that are present here in the region. Most recently, the Admiral Group from an insurance perspective, but also a number of other companies. So I want to conclude here with 2 charts focusing on costs, because obviously proximity is important to you, but the cost angle is also crucial. And here, when you look at real estate costs from a logistics angle, with a base at 100, our region is on average 30% cheaper than our European competitors. And from a production angle, so here the chart displays again on a 100 base, the annual rent on a specific industrial site, and as you can see, we're 24% cheaper than our European competitors. So that's all for me. These are the contact details from myself, Charles, and Michael, which we will send to you after this webinar. And we can now move on to the questions session. So we have received a number of questions in advance, which we can focus on, but obviously the forum is open on the webinar, so feel free to ask any sort of question related to any of the topics that we mentioned, or even other topics that you think that you would like answers on. So maybe to kick off the questions, one for Charles. So what solutions do you have that can help our business with part load transport from the UK to the EU?
Yeah, no, so we get an awful lot of questions around we don't move full load of trucks. Can we still use the smart border? Does regime 42 and the sort of VAT process work in that respect? Yes is the answer. There are more and more hauliers we're partnered with that are using the smart border in particular. And so really just get in touch and we can introduce you to them. Probably at the start of the year, even some of the big multinational hauliers were really not prepared for the uptake in demand for using the smart border as a point of clearance. But now that has firmly changed 6 months on.
Okay, perfect. And so another question that we have just received on the Traces certificate. So just to clarify for everyone, the Traces NT is the European system where people who export products of plant or animal origin can actually register their goods. So the question is, who raises the certificate in Traces NT?
Yeah, so it's a common question, and ultimately our biggest advice is you work with a customs agent that is based at the port that you're going to enter to deal with traces for you, because if there is an issue, the local vet office has a local representative that can attend to the load and deal with it in person and expedite it through, rather than subcontracting it to someone in, the south of France, where it's just a bit too disconnected from the overall process. And actually coming into Brexit for the first 2 months, that is where a lot of people made their mistakes. They were going for the cheapest price for doing it, and thus meaning actually they were spending more on truck waiting time than the actual cost of preparing the paperwork. And so my advice is work with Unsworth and its partners to be able to do that from the port of Calais or port of Dunkirk in person.
Okay, perfect. Maybe one question for Michael. So we are investigating setting up a new company in Europe to deal with our European sales. So clarification as to any tax implications regarding the location of the management and administration of the company would be welcome. I want to understand any implications if it is managed and administered from the UK, and the relevant definitions of each, if applicable, so we don't shoot ourselves in the foot setting up a new company which fails to achieve its objectives.
Right, that's a very fair question, and what our experience shows that many UK companies at first are looking to set up a company in the EU, and that's most of the time the first advice they receive from their chartered accountants. In some situations, having a permanent establishment in the EU is mandatory, namely if your company intends to have people, to hire people in France, or to have or to buy a building, for example, or offices in France. There will be no other way than setting up a company in France. And of course, this company will be subject to all French taxes like any other French company. Another option would consist in not being established on the French ground, but to use the fiscal representation solution that would remove any corporate tax, any French corporate tax from you. The question is to know how your company would be organized. Will there be any permanent means on the French ground? And and we would be happy to help you to analyze it, but the answer is not that straightforward because it will depend on many different factors. But most of the companies we've been talking to only have trading operations in the EU, so it does not require a permanent establishment in France, unless this particular company would be happy to have offices in France, for example. But this is not mandatory. So the two options are available, and I would be happy to maybe to discuss this further with them.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Michael. So another question for Charles. Can you organize both export customs clearance UK and import customs clearance in France? And is the process the same for intra-company transfers from one DC to the other?
No, understand. So from us, customs is all about the data. You've roughly got 40 individual pieces of information that customs in any state want. And so for us, the export and the import really has a very much the same data required. And so our advice is to work with someone who is able to take the export and instantly transform that into the import customs clearance through a local agent to then produce it. So in terms of it, yes, we can. In terms of the speed it takes, we're talking probably 4 minutes to do the export and a further 3 minutes to do the import. And where it's an intercompany transfer between a UK entity and, say, for example, a European entity, that digitized process of 10 minutes for the process to be complete is exceptionally popular and actually quite good value for money.
Perfect, thank you. And so another question for Charles. We're a business that sells beer made in the UK to the EU. Have you got any introductions that can provide movement guarantee to help with the transport of it?
Yeah, so alcohol is always, it's a bit like the Northern Ireland sausage meat scandal that's going on at the moment. A lot of individuals in the UK and the EU do not like touching alcohol due to some forms of duty suspensions that might be occurring, and the overall movement guarantee to make sure that that it's actually going to where it says it is. So what I always say to these people is to get in touch. Sometimes we can and sometimes we can't, depending on the nature of the transaction. I know that Michael deals with an awful lot of alcohol customers generally, and he might have something else to add to that situation. But unfortunately for us, it will be case by case reviewed to look at the specific risks of that movement.
Okay, perfect. Another question. Our company needs cost-effective warehouses to store goods imported from outside the EU to distribute to our European clients. What solutions can you provide? So maybe I'll take that one. So obviously we have, as I said, a really strong transport and logistics ecosystem, and obviously many bonded warehouses. So basically warehouses where you can clear customs. And to simplify things, well, you have a number of these warehouses and logistics facilities near the border. So between Calais, Dunkirk, and Boulogne, and many transport companies are around there, and they can provide exactly these services. Another important spot is all along the Lille metropole. And that's for obvious reasons, as that's where the A1 highway arrives, and that's where you have connections to Belgium. And that's where actually many of the lorries and most of the transport and logistics flows actually go through. So again, that's another important spot from a logistics angle. And then, as I said, you have the E-Valley site, which is more central in the region, near Cambrai. And then south of the region, not far away from the Paris region, you have other important logistics facilities. So obviously then it depends what you actually want that space for what kind of exports, if it's for the French market or for other European markets. And we'll be obviously very happy to discuss any of this in further detail afterwards. Another question for Michael. Are there simplified procedures for e-commerce on products considered low value?
Absolutely. And I believe that this topic would deserve another webinar, maybe a 3 or 4 hour webinar.
Absolutely.
Because this topic is probably the most complicated topic that we've seen for about 20 years from a tax perspective. You may know that the European Commission will launch some web portals, the so-called one-stop shop and import one-stop shop, that will allow foreign companies to import their goods of low value. Low value means less than 150 euros through this web portal called the IOSS, the Import One-Stop Shop. We have no real idea how this web portal will be working by the 1st of July, because it will be implemented by the 1st of July. And according to the information that we have from the customs themselves, it will probably be a tough topic for customs brokers, mainly for customs brokers, because it seems that they do not have many information about how to import clear the goods into the EU. But the answer is yes, and this import one-stop shop will allow any foreign company, or even a French company, to directly import goods to a private individual and paying the VAT on sales directly through the web portal, whatever the destination of the goods will be. It can be anywhere in the EU. However, this will trigger a VAT not a VAT, but a kind of VAT registration through the IOSS, and non-EU companies, such as, unfortunately, UK companies, will need to appoint a kind of fiscal representative, who is called an intermediary, and this will be compulsory. And we have received the accreditation to be acting as this intermediary.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Michael. Another question for Charles. Hi, we are looking to know if Unsworth can provide us UK entry for LATAM cargoes, fresh, storage, and move some parts of that cargoes to the EU. Maybe before Charles answers, obviously, as we said before, any goods that are imported from outside the EU into the UK and then back into the EU, if there's no transformation performed to the goods themselves in the UK, then the goods will not be of UK origin, and therefore, if tariffs apply, then you will have to pay the tariffs when exporting them to the EU. And these are specific cases where it might be easier to export, at least the goods that are EU-bound, to export them directly into the EU, and that also means that you'll have sanitary, phytosanitary controls only once, so when they arrive in the EU, rather than twice, through the UK and then through the EU. But Charles.
And Absolutely, and you kind of took the words out of my mouth in terms of, supply chains in a post-Brexit world need to be restructured. And what that means is the flows of UK-bound cargo and the flows of EU27-bound cargo might need to be split actually at origin in the LATAM region. And then in essence, you're moving half of it via LCL to the UK and then half of it into the French ports. It's a very, very common challenge that we're seeing as of today. But if, for whatever reason, it has to come into the UK because that's how you're set up and that's kind of what you want to stay doing, you've then got to be starting to think around duty suspension, just so that you're not double paying duty if it's applicable, and what sort of customs regime the cargo might be coming into in the UK, because ultimately you just don't want to be loading up these extra costs to your customers in the EU. So it's actually a very common question now that the noise around Brexit settled, and actually a lot of work is being done around origin and preference with our customers, and this is where really you can make Brexit work to your advantage. It shouldn't be a disadvantage to business, especially if you're working with the right partners. It should give you competitive advantage and enable you to grow.
Thank you. So another question for Michael, somehow related to what you mentioned before about the EU VAT changes upcoming. We are a small UK company shipping product to the EU and to a related entity in the EU. What do we need to do in reaction to the EU VAT changes at the end of July?
Well, I'm afraid I won't have probably the right answer to this question, because in order to answer this question, I would need to know a little bit more about how the transactions are organized, where the goods will be shipped to. Will there be some storage of goods? Will there be marketplaces involved in the process? Because what I could say about the marketplaces, is that they would become responsible for paying the VAT in the name of any non-EU companies. So my answer could be use the IOSS if possible if we are talking about direct imports of goods to private individuals, or to use the OSS, the one-stop shop solution web portal, in case goods are shipped from a stock of goods, and the stock can be anywhere in the EU. The rules would be exactly the same because they would be harmonized in all the EU member states, so that's the good news. However, I would recommend the company to be very, very careful about the flows of goods, and especially if they are using some marketplaces, because their responsibility would be massive in terms of VAT.
Okay, thank you. Now, moving back to Charles. As a trader, what kind of solutions can a customs broker provide to my business that will successfully streamline our processes? in less than 4 hours.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those questions that we get asked in quite generic senses around how do we improve things. You know, our goods are flowing to our customers in the EU, our customers are still placing repeat orders, but we know we've got a load of associated costs around that. And one of the big things I always say is reach out to myself and Michael, have a 30-minute call and just share with us about how your trades are moving, and in terms of what's going well and what you would like to improve on. All I would consistently say is that your customers in the EU will not put up with the faff or the extra costs or the delays or the nuisance that Brexit, with the creation of the customs border, for forever. And my biggest message is we will try hard to simplify the process and to make it easy. And a lot of that revolves around using technology to take information out of your sales order system into the customs system and return that back to your haulier. And so it's all about how we make it a little bit more efficient now.
Perfect. And so another question for Charles, somehow related to what we discussed before about imports from outside the EU into the EU, but via the UK. We're a business that currently imports goods from Taiwan to Estonia via the UK. How would you be able to assist me on imports?
First question is always, with anything that's coming into the UK, is understanding why it's coming into the UK. So there's the assumption that your biggest market's the UK and you've got a small market in Estonia for your goods. If not, I would now be shipping it direct into that member state. I typically realise that a lot of people might be buying something from Taiwan, doing some small process change, maybe reboxing it, relabeling it with their own sort of branding, and then pushing it into EU markets. In that respect, I think there's a discussion to really understand why that's happening in the UK. It might sound strange that as a customs broker, I'm almost pushing you to ship direct to Estonia, but all we want you to have is a supply chain delivering that competitive advantage, even if it isn't in my best interests.
Okay, thank you. Now, one other question for Michael. We are a UK company manufacturing high-end furniture in Europe, warehousing in Netherlands and wanting to export out of the Netherlands. We have the Netherlands VAT and applying with KVK for Chamber of Commerce. What else do we need?
I believe nothing else. I believe you're all set. You seem to be very well prepared to these EU transactions. So if your company is already registered for VAT in the Netherlands, your company will be able and allowed to ship goods out of the Netherlands. I would just like to highlight a very, very important point is that in case your company wanted to export goods outside the Netherlands, but export, what I mean by export is outside the EU, then you will need to pay attention about who will be the exporter of records, because of the new definition of the exporter, your UK-based company might not be able to be the exporter of these goods from the Netherlands or from any other EU member state. So that's a very tricky point, and you would probably need to find another company that would accept to be the exporter of records in your name. Okay,
perfect. Now, a slightly technical question for Charles. So for customers who used to collect FCA UK, so I'm referring to the Incoterm here, but are now struggling to export, would, by using the 4200 solution that you mentioned, would we be able to offer FCA France warehouse, or would this need to be FCA other EU nation warehouse?
So this is almost a combined answer between myself and Michael. And the regime 42 or the regime 40 really enables you as the UK seller to sell DDP to your customer. It unfortunately will not allow you to transfer the goods to an EU member state warehouse and hold them as consignment stock at some unspecified point in time to then sell them on easily. And so ultimately there will be a bit of an Incoterm switch where you would start selling to your customer on a DDP basis, removing the faff of Brexit from the overall supply chain. In terms of going back to could we set up a process where we sold FCA this new Lille warehouse? Yes, but maybe not using regime 4200, it will be regime 40, and that's where Michael's team come into their own and would set it up. It all revolves around value of transactions, number of transactions, and how and where you position your logistics hub to deliver yourself that competitive advantage. So almost to give you the right answer, there's probably 3 answers. I would have to ask another 6 more questions. On these sorts of customers, all I say is reach out to us after the event so that Michael and I can have a conversation with you and make sure you're signposted to the correct members within our team who are then able to build these solutions for you.
Thank you very much. So another question for Michael. We are a UK-based company distributing fabrics to around 500 VAT-registered customers in the EU. Can we clear out shipments into the EU through France using our Netherlands VAT number and our Netherlands EORI number? Can you recommend a partner for distributing our B2B deliveries across the EU once they are cleared through EU customs?
All right. About the EORI number, things are pretty simple because the EORI number is valid anywhere in the EU. So as long as your EORI number is valid, if I remember what it was in the Netherlands, then the EORI number can be used in any EU country. From a VAT perspective, your company would like to import goods through France, then you will need to opt either for the regime 4200 solution that would remove the obligation from registering from VAT in France, or you could also decide to register for VAT in France. But I would like to insist on the fact that we need to identify 2 different steps in the process. The first step is the import into France, and that's a customs process. There is import VAT that we are always happy to have reverse charge for UK companies. And the second step is the sales, and these sales qualify as either French domestic sales or from intra-European, intra-community sales, and in this particular case, the VAT number that needs to be used is the VAT number from the country of departure of the goods. That means that if goods are imported into France and then reshipped from France to any other EU country, then it will be a French VAT number that will need to be mentioned on your invoices. I'm fully aware this topic is very complex, and I'm sorry to give such a normal answer.
That's perfectly normal, and our role here is really to help you make sure that you find the right solutions. So 2 more questions for Charles, one relatively simple and another slightly less simple. So the first one is, we're looking for a reliable customs agent in France. What are your recommendations?
Yeah, no, and it's very common we get asked for our recommendations, and at Unsworth we only recommend partners that we've personally visited and really engaged with, and also a part of our overall technology piece. So within Unsworth, due to our volumes, we work with three different partners in France, and they have different specialities, different strengths, and also different tariffs depending on the type of sort of SLA service you're wanting. So in terms of it, that is the easiest way, is to go off a word of mouth recommendation, where we're really happy to put our name behind these partners. And absolutely, as I always say, after this, reach out and I will introduce these people to them, and it really enables you to pick the right partner that fits your business.
Perfect, thank you. And now to the other question. We are using for export to Germany Kuhn & Nagel. Our recent order was shipped on the 15th, so 15th from the previous month, I suppose, and cleared by customs on the 25th. The order still hasn't arrived. Any idea what is causing such big delays? I want to understand what is the issue with shipping goods to Germany.
Yeah, so this is sort of going to get worse, actually, in the whole sort of hub infrastructure of the EU. There's a lot of congestion going on, because when goods were collected day 1, delivered day 3, they were flowing through these warehouses. At the moment, in the sort of in the Munich super hub, they're having to hold that cargo, wait for you to customs clear the cargo, and then allow it to move on. And ultimately, the sort of bottlenecking is happening, and they're not able to get back to the previous ways of working. That could be said that were K&M prepared for Brexit and in terms of their ways of working, or is it much better to present to a haulier customs cleared cargo that when it's left the port of Calais, it's cleared customs and it's in free circulation, able to be delivered to a customer anywhere in the EU member states. So from my side, if it's all about short shelf life or good quick turnaround, go to the regime 42 or the regime 40, clear via the smart border, and that means it's digitally cleared almost when the cargo's on the ferry across to France. And so my biggest advice is, if you're having delays, is to do that. And the second bit is maybe look at the sort of what I would have previously referred to as the tier 2 hauliers, slightly smaller networks, a little bit more boutique, but actually achieving collect day 1, deliver day 4 at the moment.
Thank you very much. Now a question from a company who is importing so a small amount of product from the EU into the UK. What volume of business in terms of pounds would make your services viable?
EU into
the UK.
Yeah, so I think what's very important is the recognition by Unsworth that every single movement, 200 million of them, require a customs declaration. So no matter whether you're a multi-billion pound multinational or what we might branch as a small sort of market stall type business, we have a different team that are able to support you. What I would say, though, is it's really important to put time, effort and energy to get your documentation right, because if it's not right, you're just going to find a lot of extra charges come your way, and so the more effort you put into documentation, the better.
Perfect. And so another question we've received, have you changed anything that might mean you can help us with logistics? We use couriers like UPS, DPD, and no RMB. Maybe I can take that one. I mean, obviously, it really depends the kind of logistics services you want, because, I mean, depending on your business model, it can be very different. You may require very different services. You may want to have bonded warehouses either close to the ports of Calais or Dunkirk. You may want to have them closer to the main the main roads that lead to European markets. So here, I mean, obviously we can get in touch after the webinar to speak about more tailored solutions. But here, I think the main argument here is that the diversity of services and that we can all provide from a customs, a tax angle, but also from a broader business perspective, and putting you in touch with the right people so that they can provide you with the right services. That diversity is really important, and that's really what we're here for. Another question we've received, and which we can actually all contribute to, so feel free to, I mean, I'll say a few words and feel free to chip in whenever you want. So, and it's slightly more general. How long do you think it will take for the UK and EU to trade normally without the initial friction we have seen since January? So it's a slightly tricky question because obviously, well, there's been a lot of friction in January and February, and for some sectors it's been quite extreme. I mean, I work a lot with Scottish fishermen, helping them export into Boulogne and elsewhere, and these frictions were extreme at the beginning. Now they're gradually normalizing, but what we all have to bear in mind is that the new controls, processes and formalities that have been put in place are here to stay, for the very simple reason that the UK left the EU single market and the EU customs union. And so all these processes are here to stay. That's a very important message to bear in mind. But these issues are far from being insurmountable. And it's really all a matter of organization. And that's clearly our key message from this webinar and from the last webinar we organized. And we're all here precisely to help you get organized. I mean, for the governance of the trade and cooperation agreement between the UK and the EU itself, the problem is that it's highly complex, and it's very flexible. It's at the same time a good thing because it means that it will be easier to get around problems, but it's also a bad thing because it means that we entered a sort of state of permanent negotiation, and it means that if a few things are not set in stone, then nothing is set in stone, and that's the whole problem. But we'll see how things move forward. The different governance committees are starting to be put together, and hopefully with some goodwill on both sides of the channel, we'll manage to have an agreement which is well governed and providing solutions to everyone. Don't know whether either of you wants to add on this.
Just to sort of chip in with my views as sort of the UK customs broker's perspective on this. I think, yes, the first 1 to 2 weeks were exceptionally challenging. We're now into this business as usual position as long as your paperwork is right. If your paperwork's right and you understand the process, it is okay. I think we're now into that sort of phase 2 position where people are really starting to get their heads around rules of origin, preference and other sort of duty issues, and also restructuring their supply chain where their products are coming directly into the EU rather than via the UK. I see all these contributing to what is the future trade strategy of the UK. And if you're going to ask me when will things return to normal, they won't. Normal has gone. The UK population decided at the time that Brexit was the right course of action. And ultimately, businesses must adapt to survive, and also must make sure they are encouraging their customers in the EU to continue to buy from them and make it as easy as possible. My biggest advice is to have a review of your supply chain by a number of different experts to see what suggestions they have to get you back to that business as usual position. But unfortunately, the good old days of just being able to pick up a pallet and pretty much have it delivered to your customer within 24 hours has long gone.
Thanks, Charles. Michael?
Well, our experience shows that still now some companies are not aware that they can be the importer of records in the EU. And so they're facing issues with their own clients who don't want to be any more involved in the customs process, or they're trying to find some solutions, and these solutions really are in the DDP deliveries. And there's nothing magical in this. We've been providing this for more than 40 years. So it is shown that these solutions are very efficient. The only thing is that you need to have to agree on these things with your customs brokers, so that your customers will be cleared in your name. And in my opinion, this is the key to success.
Thank you very much. So we have less than 50 seconds left, but we can still carry on. So the very final question, I'll ask for just one one answer from each of you. From your experience, what are some of the biggest obstacles that UK and EU businesses are still facing post-Brexit? My opinion would be the re-establishment of controls, or import controls for the UK. Don't know what, Charles, your advice is?
Yeah, no, I think it's the now it's going to be EU to UK imports and fully understanding what's coming. Look, guys, we've all seen the chaos the export controls at the French border and the EU borders have created. The UK government eased those for a year. We now really need to start gearing up for what's to come sort of now, really, and that's really where a lot of our energy and efforts are going to.
Thanks. Michael?
Well, I would say that the main obstacles come from these additional inspections, additional certifications, the paperwork, and I'm afraid that this paperwork will still be so much important in order to have the things done properly. So my best advice is to have things really, really well prepared before you ship anything outside the EU, and especially on the DTP basis. But we are here to, and we'll be happy to talk with all these companies that are listening to us today. Please reach out, and we'll be happy to talk about this with you.
Thank you very much. So this webinar has come to an end. We hope you greatly enjoyed it. We will send you the link to the replay of the webinar and our contact details if there's anything you want to dig further, or if there's anything you want to discuss in more details. And until then, well, thank you very much and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.